please don't forget the money, man.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily
Oh
count
boy,
every single
oh
single
boy.
penny.
Did we have a turnaround in Game 2 of the NBA Finals, as was to be expected after the thumping the Warriors took in the fourth quarter of Game 1. The Celtics opened up hot, hitting their first 5 shots and taking an early lead in the first, and then proceeded to miss their next 7. Something we've come to see now throughout the playoffs, where the offense just crawls in a hole and dies sometimes. Jaylen Brown had 13 early, and they kept a lead because the Warriors also couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. They missed 3 layups in the first quarter, where the ball just rolled out of the bucket. Curry couldn't hit early and looked like he did in the second and fourth quarters of Game 1, where he was frustrated and talking to himself, but that did not last very long. Meanwhile, Draymond Green is yapping at the officials and picks up an early technical foul for really a discernible reason. No major plays that, he had reason to argue. He actually straight up ran over Grant Williams at one point, charging into him from behind and just trampling on him, and it was called a foul on Grant Williams. And it was right after that play that Draymond was called with a technical foul. Just seems crazy for him to be constantly berating the referees and complaining, especially at a point where they needed to come together in the first quarter there and really rally. And it came into play later in the game as well here. So Andre Iguodala did not play, but Gary Payton, whose status has been up in the air, checked in with Jordan Poole about halfway through the first or towards the end of the first quarter. Jason Tatum was clearly still in pain with his right shoulder. He was still grimacing throughout the game. Injury he sustained in the Miami series, and you have to wonder if that's really affecting his shooting, and if that's a report that'll come out after the finals that he's got a lingering issue in that right shoulder. Looney was the most productive player offensively for the Warriors in the first and later on in the game as well. He was taking advantage of the attention the perimeter shooters were getting. On one play, Curry actually was driving into the paint and ended up drawing a total of 4 defenders between his catching the ball on the perimeter and penetrating into the paint, and he was able to maneuver a pass outside of all the hands around him into a wide open Looney for the dunk. So the Warriors ended up closing the last 4:30 of the first quarter on a 15-8 run to grab a 31-30 lead on a Curry bank 2 at the buzzer. Included in that run was Curry's first three-pointer of the night, 3-pointers from Poole and Gary Payton, their first points of the evening, and Tatum also dropped a couple 3-pointers as he was struggling to get going a little bit early as well. So at the back end of the first quarter, the game started to look a little more up-tempo, a little more exciting, but if you tuned in from the very beginning, you would have guessed the Celtics were going to go ahead and pick up a Game 2 win there the way that they came out. The Warriors coming alive at the back end of the first quarter certainly had to be scary if you were a Celtics fan. The second quarter was a little bit more of a mess. Bielisa got extended runtime instead of Porter Jr., which was an interesting choice. He was hit or miss on defense, but he did get a couple of buckets, just making the right plays on offense to get open. Curry and Wiggins also took their rest time at the beginning of the second quarter, as Steve Kerr didn't really make adjustments in the rotation and rest time there. Curry did come back looking refreshed as opposed to the second quarter of Game 1, where he did not score at all in the second quarter once he came back. We did see Porter just before halftime subbing in a bit. Nothing was said during the broadcast, but Draymond did have another questionable collision when he ran into Marcus Smart and was standing over him. So just a very physical game from Draymond Green. Poole was in a questionable skirmish as well, but avoided a technical foul in a Derek White tie-up after a review. The Warriors did go on a 10-0 run once Gary Payton and Andrew Wiggins returned to the floor with Curry and Draymond, and pushed out to a 45-40 lead and a 3-minute period between timeouts in the second quarter. And then the Celtics were able to kind of gather themselves again, Jason Tatum was great shooting the 3 ball. Both Tatum and White hit threes to grab back a 46-45 lead in the second quarter. With just under a minute remaining before half and a back-and-forth game, Jaylen Brown was shooting the 3 ball, and Draymond Green fell into him, and they got tangled up and had to be separated. And this was another point where Draymond Green should have gotten a second technical foul. The referees met and decided not to call a double tech and eject Draymond Green from the game. Again, I don't know what his headspace is at any of these points. If this was any other game, even another playoff game, he would have gotten tossed. In this particular point, Mark Jackson and Van Gundy on the call on the broadcast were praising the referees for making the right decision, not calling a technical foul and getting Draymond tossed, but to just allow the game to play on. I think that's the right thing to do, but that doesn't mean you're doing the right thing by your own rules. And that doesn't mean that Draymond isn't going to continue to push the limits and conduct himself in a not appropriate way going forward in the game. And, I still think he could have. It was an interesting tangle prior to that with Smart. It was allowed to continue. I didn't see him receive a warning or anything like that. Jaylen Brown has since come out today and state that it sure looked like, it felt like he was Green was trying to pull his pants down. It was just a weird sequence. And I just don't know why Draymond Green continues to do that and put his team in a compromising position. He's a terrible shooter, but statistically they still have done a better job with him on the floor, with his energy, defensive ability, and passing ability on the offensive end. You just can't have him out there with multiple guys that can't shoot, because you want to have the shooters out around him. So you really need him on the floor. And I just don't get the questionable calls, on his behalf with his attitude and what he's doing. And I don't understand why nobody on the team gets in even in his fiery state and tries to reel him in a little bit. Curry is also chopped just before half, shooting a 3-pointer. That isn't called. That shot's no good. He may have exaggerated a little contact, but that isn't mentioned or replayed on the broadcast, but it looks pretty clear that he was chopped shooting a 3-pointer. But Wiggins grabs the shot and is able to put it in to give the Warriors a 52-50 halftime lead in what is just a very physical, chippy, back and forth game. Jason Tatum still is not shooting well. The Warriors are shooting 45% and 37% from 3 at the half. They were outscoring the Celtics 24-12 in the paint. They're also uncharacteristically 6 for 11 from the free throw line. Celtics were shooting 38% from the field, 52% from 3, and they were 6 for 7 from the free throw line. And the Celtics were winning the battle of the boards 25-20, but losing the turnover battle 11-5, and that led to an 18-7 points off turnover edge for the Warriors, which was a big difference. We know the Celtics lose games when they have too many turnovers. Tatum was 5 for 7 from 3 in the first half, but 7 for 16 from the field, 21 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 4 turnovers. He actually had the worst plus-minus of all Celtics in the first half at -9. Jaylen Brown was 4 for 12 with 15 points, and White was 3 for 9 with 8 points, and nobody else had more than 2 points, and Marcus Smart was the only one who had more than one shot attempt. He was 1 for 4, but also had 4 turnovers. So only 3 guys were really shooting the ball. Jaylen, Tatum, White for the Celtics. Curry was 5 for 12 and 2 for 6 from 3 with 15 points, 4 boards, 4 assists. Wiggins had 10 points on 4 of 10 shooting. Green was 7, 3, and 4. Looney only played in the first quarter and had 6 points in his quick start. He was really only on the floor when Robert Williams was on the floor and was kind of, I don't want to say played off the floor when the Celtics went small, because I think he's still productive in the right lineup, but that seems to be how the Warriors went with that, how Steve Kerr went with that lineup. Clay had a slow start, 1 for 9, 2 points. Peyton had 5. Poole was 1 for 5 with 3 points, but got fired up in the second half. Porter had 0 points in his limited minutes. Of course, Blanca, I won't get his name right, had a few points as well. Porter was the big contributor in Game 1 when he was 4 for 4 to start from 3-point land, and was a big contributor there. So it was just startling to see someone else come in and grab some of those minutes before he hit the court. The third quarter, much like last game, is where the tide really turned for the Warriors once again. Looney again looked solid. At one point, he had a great shot block early in the quarter and turned around and had an open dunk at one point. He received a pass and turned around and looked for a contest, and no one was between him and the basket as three Warriors, stared him down and no one came to contest. So just a weird sequence where he stood there for a moment before dunking it in. But again, he was only playing time when Robert Williams was on the court, and when the lineup shuffled and they were both back on the court, Robert Williams and Looney in the third, he was again more productive in that quarter and found himself open multiple times for passes, and it's just really productive on both sides of the floor. I'm not sure that there aren't ways that they can kind of get him back on the court, even if there isn't I guess what you'd call a true center, Robert Williams or Al Horford on the floor for the Celtics. He's just been so productive for what the Warriors are trying to do. Tatum was still grimacing with shoulder pain. Yeah, you could see him visibly on the broadcast again, struggling with that shoulder as well when they came back out on the floor. The Warriors got some movement, and I'm not sure it was a good idea to have Al Horford and Robert Williams on the court at the same time last night, which is what we had in the third, when Williams was injured after Smart rolled up into him at one point and injured his knee. We then had Grant Williams, the other Williams, come into the court, and Al Horford and Grant Williams weren't really any more productive together with those two. So I didn't like any of the third quarter lineups. Daniel Theis saw time as well, and he has not been productive when he's in the game. The Warriors ended up opening a 68-56 lead. Celtics coach Ime Udoka picked up a technical foul. You could see him swearing on the broadcast, and the Celtics couldn't get anything. They ended on a 19-2 run to end the quarter, which included a near half-court three-point shot by Jordan Poole, and you could see Curry just glowing and so proud of Jordan Poole's shot make as he came up and gave him a giant hug. That's one of the pictures that's all over the headlines this morning. Curry hit a couple threes in the quarter, and the Warriors outscored the Celtics 35-14 in the third. Curry had 13 of his points in that quarter. It was 87-64 heading into the fourth. And that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the game. Golden State came out and scored the first 6 of the fourth quarter to push the lead to 29, and that was about it. When you're down 29 points with 10.5 minutes left and you only have 64 on the game as it is, that's pretty much a wrap, even considering several of the big comebacks we've seen, including the fourth quarter comeback in Game 1. We had all subs in for the Celtics to start the fourth quarter, and then throughout, I don't think Tatum ever came back in, or Smart, or Brown. And we saw a mix of some of the starters. Draymond Green loves to continue to play. Clay came in and hit several buckets in the fourth to kind of keep his shot going after a struggle earlier in the game. So kind of keep himself going there. But that was it for the Celtics. You can't take a lot from the fourth quarter. That was pretty much it. Jason Tatum was a -36 in the plus-minus column, yet he was the leading scorer for the Celtics. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 turnovers, 8 of 19 shooting, 6 for 9 from 3. Williams, I imagine, will be questionable for Game 3 after that his knees were injured when Marcus Smart slid into him in the third. Wiggins and Curry did not play in the fourth quarter. So 107-88 was the final. A merciful 19-point victory for the Golden State Warriors. White, Smart, and Horford were combined 6 for 23 from the field after going 15 for 23 from 3 alone in Game 1. Draymond Green's remark after Game 1 in the press conference was, "We're not worried," in reference to the makes, as in that won't happen again. And indeed it did not. Again, 6 of 23 shooting from the field for those 3 combined after 15 of 23 shooting from three-point land alone in Game 1. On the Warriors side, Steph Curry was the leading scorer, no surprise there. And he's probably the best player on the court in this entire series, with Jason Tatum's shooting struggles. Curry had 29. It was 9 for 21 from the field, 5 for 12 on 3-point attempts, and it's just impossible to stop for the Celtics most of the time. It's going to be a tough series stopping his shooting. Jordan Poole did score 17 points. 14 of them came in the final 14 minutes of this game, so the last quarter and last 2 minutes of the third quarter as well. But getting him more involved and getting a little Steve Kerr's trust to get him in the lineup after the messy game one certainly looked good. Looney had 12 points and 7 rebounds in less than 2 quarters. He was plus 24 in the plus minus, as was Steph Curry, as was Porter, who only got a few minutes in. He was on limited minutes as he's been a little banged up. Draymond Green had 9, 5, and 7, and Gary Payton had 7 points as well. He hit all of his shots from the field, and he'll be a very important piece for these guys moving forward. Game 3, again, we have 2 full days off in between games. There will only be 1 day between game 3 and 4. Otherwise, we get these extended time between games. We'll see if Robert Williams will be playing for the Celtics at all anymore in this series. Marcus Smart looks banged up. Again, Jason Tatum's shoulder looks kind of shot. I don't know how that's going to affect the rest of the series. The Warriors, Porter has been banged up on limited minutes. Iguodala had knee inflammation. We'll see what he's able to do going forward, although he's had minimal impact so far. So the Warriors might end up the healthier team and have the best player on the court in Steph Curry right now. Again, I still think the Celtics will pull it out at this point. But Game 3 will be Wednesday night at 9 on ABC in TD Garden in Boston. Steph Curry will surely be shooting again and be the leading scorer for the Warriors. We'll see what Porter can contribute, if Poole will continue to kind of forge his way into the offense. Will Klay Thompson still have off shooting nights? Will Draymond Green be able to be productive on the offensive end without shooting and really limiting his turnovers? And what will the energy level be? Because the Warriors came out in Game 2 here. High energy, a little too aggressive, I think, on Draymond's end. And will the Celtics be amped up and ready to play? But sure seems like we have injuries piling up on that side. So we'll see. Wednesday, Game 3.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beat turn into a